She was minutes away from walking down the aisle when she heard the words that shattered her world. Maya had spent months imagining this moment, the flowers, the music, the smiles of her family as she walked toward the man she thought was her forever. Her heart raced with anticipation, her dress felt like a dream, and every guest in the hall waited to see her step into the spotlight. But in one instant, all of it twisted into something she could never have prepared for. Maya's love story with Ryan had always looked perfect from the outside. He was charming, confident, and everyone seemed to adore him. Her parents welcomed him like a son, and her friends often told her she was lucky. And Maya believed it. She thought their love was built on honesty, on years of devotion and late-night promises whispered when the world felt still. But reality had a cruel way of showing itself. Just before the ceremony, Ryan slipped away, claiming he needed a moment to collect himself. Maya, nervous but smiling, was left with her maid of honor, Sophie, who fussed with the veil and whispered reassurance. The minutes stretched, and unease settled in her chest. Something about the way Ryan hurried off didn't feel right. Against Sophie's gentle protest, Maya followed the path he had taken, her heels clicking softly against the marble. She didn't expect to hear his voice. She didn't expect to hear the tone he used, low, intimate, almost desperate. The words pierced through the half-closed door, freezing her body where she stood. "Don't worry, Chloe, this is just for today. You know you're the one I'll come home to. Maya. She's just what everyone expects me to marry." Her heart slammed in her chest so hard she thought it might crack through her ribs. Every syllable cut into her, tearing down the castle of dreams she had built for years. She pressed her hand over her mouth to stop the sob from escaping, tears blurring her vision as her entire body trembled. The veil she had treasured now felt like a costume for a cruel play. The man she thought was hers was nothing but an actor. Sophie found her minutes later, curled in the hallway, her makeup smudged, her chest heaving with quiet sobs. Maya's words spilled out between tears, telling her everything she heard. Sophie's face hardened with fury, but her voice stayed steady. She reminded Maya she still had a choice. She wasn't powerless, even if her heart felt shattered. Maya's mind became a storm. Should she run away, leaving the guests confused and the whispers endless? Should she call the whole thing off and disappear, sparing herself the humiliation but letting Ryan continue his perfect groom facade? For a moment, the weight of shame pressed her so heavily she thought she might collapse. But then anger began to burn. The betrayal stung sharper than anything she'd ever felt, and it lit a fire inside her. This wasn't just about her broken heart. This was about every promise he had broken, every lie he had dressed in charm. This was about the sacrifices her family had made for this day, the love they had poured into making it perfect. Ryan didn't get to walk away with his mask still intact. Wiping her tears, Maya straightened her back. "I'm not running," she whispered to Sophie, her voice shaky but growing stronger with each word. "I'm going to the altar, but on my terms." Sophie's eyes widened with admiration. In that moment, Maya wasn't just a broken bride. She was a woman discovering her strength. The two of them worked quickly. Sophie fixed the makeup streaks, adjusted the veil, and gave Maya words that felt like armor. "Remember who you are. He doesn't define you. You'll show him exactly what he's thrown away." Maya stood before the mirror once more, but this time she didn't see the girl who had dreamed of a fairy tale ending. She saw a woman who had been hurt, betrayed, and underestimated, and who was ready to rise from it stronger than before. Her reflection looked almost unfamiliar, the same dress, the same glowing skin, but eyes that burned with determination instead of innocent love. The sound of music drifted in from the hall, the cue that her walk down the aisle was moments away. The guests were already on their feet, craning their necks to catch the first glimpse of her. Ryan, somewhere ahead, waited with his practiced smile, unaware of the storm he had unleashed. Maya's heart beat like a drum, not with joy this time, but with the power of knowing what she was about to do. This wouldn't be the wedding day she once dreamed of, but it would be the day she reclaimed herself. She adjusted the veil, smoothed the dress, and took Sophie's hand for one final squeeze of courage. When she let go, her face wore a calm smile, but her soul carried fire. She stepped forward, each stride filled not with fear, but with resolve. Inside her, the decision was sealed: she would not let betrayal define her. She would expose it. And she would do it in front of everyone. The aisle was waiting. The vows were waiting. The moment of truth was waiting. And Maya was ready. Maya's steps echoed as she moved forward, every pair of eyes fixed on her, every smile expecting a love story to reach its peak. Ryan's face lit up when he saw her, the picture of a groom certain of his victory. But inside, Maya carried something he could never anticipate. Each step reminded her of the betrayal she had overheard, each beat of her heart sharpened the words she was preparing to speak. When she reached him, Ryan extended his hand, trying to hold the illusion. She took it, her touch steady, her gaze unflinching. The ceremony began, filled with words about trust, devotion, and unity. Ryan repeated his vows with flawless delivery, his voice thick with false sincerity. Guests smiled, some wiping tears, convinced they were witnessing the beginning of forever. But Maya listened in silence, remembering every word he had whispered to Chloe. Each lie he spoke only strengthened her resolve. The officiant turned to her, giving her the moment everyone waited for. She inhaled deeply, her mind sharp, her voice steady. Instead of repeating the expected promises, she began to speak from her heart. She spoke of love as something sacred, something that demands honesty and loyalty. She spoke of how trust is the foundation of a marriage, how betrayal is poison that rots the very core of a union. The crowd listened, their expressions soft, thinking she was simply delivering emotional vows. Then her words shifted. Her voice sharpened, her eyes locked on Ryan. She told them she had overheard him before the ceremony, confessing his love to another woman, planning a future where she was nothing but a prop. A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Murmurs erupted, some covering their mouths in shock, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Ryan's confident smile cracked, his hand tightening around hers as if he could silence her by force of touch. She pulled her hand away, holding her ground. Ryan stumbled for words, his voice desperate, trying to dismiss it as a misunderstanding. But his panic was visible. Maya's strength only grew. She named the woman, Chloe, speaking it clearly so there was no doubt. And just as she did, someone in the back of the hall shifted uncomfortably. Guests turned, eyes widening as Chloe herself tried to slip quietly toward the exit. The whispers grew louder, confirming Maya's truth. Ryan's mask shattered completely, his excuses spilled out clumsily, promises that it wasn't what it sounded like, declarations of love for Maya meant to win her back in front of the crowd. But the damage was done. The guests weren't fooled. They had seen the cracks, and they had heard the courage in Maya's voice. She turned to the crowd instead of him, thanking them for their presence, for their love, for believing in her happiness. She told them the wedding wouldn't end in a union of lies, but it wouldn't end in sorrow either. Instead of walking away in tears, she declared that the reception would continue, not as a celebration of marriage, but as a celebration of freedom, of truth, of the people who stood by her through joy and pain. The guests broke into applause, admiration shining in their eyes. Sophie was already in tears, pride written across her face. Ryan, furious and humiliated, tried to regain control, but no one listened. He was no longer the charming groom, he was the liar exposed in front of everyone he wanted to impress. Chloe stood frozen, her presence confirming everything Maya revealed, and the whispers grew into judgment that neither of them could escape. Ryan's reputation crumbled with every passing second. Maya, however, glowed brighter. Music returned, food was served, and laughter filled the hall as she led the reception into something new. She danced with Sophie, with her parents, with cousins and uncles, proving she would not let betrayal steal her joy. She gave a toast, her voice steady and clear, thanking everyone again and declaring that sometimes the greatest blessing is discovering the truth before it's too late. Betrayal, she said, isn't the end of a story. It's the beginning of a stronger one. And today, I choose myself. The crowd erupted in cheers, lifting their glasses to her bravery. Strangers approached to tell her how much they admired her courage, how they wished they had done the same when faced with heartbreak in their own lives. Her family wrapped her in love, assuring her she deserved far better than Ryan could ever give. Ryan slinked away in the background, anger and humiliation twisting his features, but Maya didn't spare him another glance. He no longer held power over her. The man she once loved had been an illusion, and now that illusion was gone. She felt lighter, freer, even joyful, because she had turned the worst moment of her life into her moment of triumph. As the night carried on, laughter and music filling the air, Maya felt her spirit rise higher with every song, every smile, every embrace. She wasn't the broken bride abandoned at the altar. She was the woman who had walked into fire and come out unburned, stronger than before. By the time the celebration wound down, she was no longer thinking about the vows that were never exchanged. She was thinking about the future she would build on her own terms. No lies. No masks. Just truth, love, and the strength she had always carried within her. And as she stepped out into the night, the stars above glittering like they were celebrating her too, she whispered to herself, this was never the end. This was the beginning. The story closed not on betrayal, but on power, not on heartbreak, but on healing. Maya walked away not with a husband, but with something far more important, her dignity, her freedom, and the courage to write a new story for herself, because sometimes the most beautiful weddings aren't the ones that bind two people together. They are the ones where a woman learns she was already whole all along.